Joining us for a little bit is State Senator John Milkovich. Hey, Mr. John, how are you today?
Hey, Robert and Erin, how are y'all?
Well, Mr. John, last time we spoke, the last time we talked about you on this radio station.
You were all for income taxes.
No. The last time we talked about Senator John Milkovich on this station, we were reading his letter to Governor John Bel Edwards that said, don't lump me in with those members of the Democratic caucus that are calling for higher taxes. Mm-hmm. That was in reference to a letter sent to the governor by Troy Carter, who's the head of the Democratic Senate caucus. And on the letterhead is Mr. John's name among 13 others. And you sort of got lumped in this Troy Carter letter that was calling for a tax increase. And you went, whoa, hold on. I disagree adamantly. You take it from here.
Well, that's a very accurate summary, Robert. That's great. That's accurate reporting of the news, and I appreciate that. I just believe that, listen, if we're going to go forward, we don't need to be putting more taxes on family-owned businesses, small businesses, and wage earners, and basically redistributing the wealth from people that work to people that refuse to work or don't work. And listen, I'm all for helping people that can't help themselves, but I believe that instead of continually taking money out of the pockets of people that are busting it, some people 40 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours, and more. There's people in the state that work 100 hours. Why are we taxing them more to redistribute the wealth to people that can work but won't work? And,
John, pardon me, with a stance like that, you can't possibly be very popular within your own party in Baton Rouge.
You know, Robert, we made it very clear in our campaign that we're running on Bible principles and the United States Constitution. We did not run to go to Baton Rouge and be dictated to by the political parties, and we're not going to be told what to do by the political parties. I think it's time for us to stand up, do the right thing for the people, attempt to do the right thing in the eyes of God, and one of the principles that's a basic Bible principle is work, and work as hard as you can. And we're not against people that are struggling. We're for them, but we think instead of paying people to not work, let's go ahead and get involved. Let's encourage them. Let's take our message to the schools. Let's give people a chances in the free enterprise system, and let's lift people up instead of trying to get them in a system of dependence that they can't get out of. And frankly, our state cannot afford it.
The quarter penny sales tax, John. Do you support keeping a quarter of that penny on the books?
At this point, I do not. I'm not saying that I won't consider it in the future, but I went on record several weeks ago saying I don't think this is the right time for the special session. By saying that, I'm not trying to criticize any specific people, but I thought before we even talk about raising taxes, we need to cut spending. And a couple things in that regard. Number one, if you want to cut taxes, you first have to cut spending. Louisiana doesn't have deficit spending, so we cannot just keep spending more and not have the taxes to pay for it. So
the governor says he's cut $600 million.
Well, and of course, we've had that discussion's been hashed out. Some of them one-time cuts, some of them annualized cuts.
Did he lie to you, John?
Let's rephrase Erin's question so that you can. Let's rephrase Erin's question. Has the governor and or Jay Darden been a little
deceptive,
loose with the truth when it comes to how much they've cut and how they've cut it?
I'm not in a position to comment on that. I haven't really studied exactly the derivation or the computation of the $600 million number. All I can say is cuts are good if they're in the right place. And number two, cuts are good. I think the governor did some positive things when he first came in. A hiring freeze, and he put a freeze on raises. But, last year, the budget, against which I voted 3 times in 2017, we got away from the hiring freeze, and we actually gave a raise to state employees. Look, we love state employees, but if we're broke, I don't think we're in a position to be given raises. So it gets back to, and this is what I heard over and over in the campaign, when a family spending exceeds its budget, they cut spending. That's what we have to do at the state level. And really, Louisiana, you know, we're on the bottom of so many ratings. I think it's time for us to start shooting to the top of some ratings. Some of my emphases in this session: guns, budgets, and babies. I don't think that we should send our kids to schools to be sitting ducks in classrooms and in school campuses where they have no way to protect themselves from maniacs. We've introduced a bill, or we're filing a bill that says that school boards should be authorized to allow people with military experience, law enforcement background, security training to be armed so they can protect those kids and students when somebody charges in.
John, let me ask you, the House is going to get back to work today. It's been 2 weeks. Really nothing's accomplished. Are you disappointed in that nothing's gotten over to the Senate yet and you've got a week left?
No, I'm not really. You know, this is democracy. Again, I was one that said several weeks ago, went on record, I don't think we should have a special session yet. I think we should figure out, you know, what spending cuts we can make, and there's many that can be made, millions of dollars of cuts that can be made, scores of millions of dollars that can be made. In my view, we've identified some cuts. So I think, number one, the cuts should have been made first. And number two, if the House is really having a hard time raising taxes and really struggling with it, to me, that's a good thing. I think they should think very carefully about raising taxes. But I get back to this. People in Baton Rouge say, well, it's the governor's job to cut spending. It's not the job of legislators. I adamantly, to use Robert's phrase, disagree. As a legislator, it's my constitutional obligation to identify cuts that can be made so that we can cut taxes. So this whole business, well, let's cut taxes, but no one's going to cowboy up, as I said a few weeks ago, to identify cuts. That doesn't work. Short answer to your question is the fact that the House is struggling with taxes, that's a good thing. They should think very seriously, because the working people, the small businesses, the family-owned businesses, the wage earners, they're tired of taxes.